Hey guys, good day. I came across something the other day that jumped off the page when I saw it. It's one of these things that just, there's a word that we have in English called coincidence. But if you know your Hebrew, there is no Hebrew word, the original language that God spoke with Adam. For the word, there's no original word for coincidence because nothing is a coincidence. Everything is under God's sovereign plan. There is no luck. Saying good luck is meaningless. There's no chance. There's no coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about Daniel's 70 weeks and how it could possibly apply to today. But before we do that, I want to just talk about something else, about Jesus in Luke 19. In Luke 19, Jesus has the triumphal entry, which is 4 days before he's crucified. It's called Palm Sunday. And it starts right here when he weeps over Jerusalem. And Jesus, and this is what it says. And when he drew near to the city, he wept over it. Wept. Wept. Let's jump to the Greek. That word for weep is to weep aloud, expressing uncontainable audio grief. Let's watch a movie that tried to portray this.
If only, on this your day, you had known the path for peace, but you have failed to see it. The days will come when your enemies build ramparts to surround you and hem you in, pressing hard from every side. And within these walls they will destroy you and your children. And they will not leave one stone upon another in you.
So it's a shame that this actor's not weeping uncontrollably to get the point across. But why is he saying this? Why is he saying, would that you, even you, had only known this day the things that would bring you peace? Well, the reason he's saying that, in my opinion, is they should have known. The religious leaders, the folks that read the Torah, that read the prophets, they should have known, because the 70 weeks prophecy, this is a prophecy given to Daniel, who was in Babylonian captivity and nearing his 70th year. He was praying one day, and after his prayer, the angel Gabriel showed up, literally flew in, I guess with his wings, and sat there and gave Daniel a prophecy about the coming of the Messiah. So the question is, the 70 weeks prophecy, is there a dual fulfillment like many other prophecies? And I think there is. So let's jump into it for a quick second. I put together a study here where I said, consider the 70 weeks prophecy. I say it's the most important prophecy ever given to humanity. It literally gives us the clues when the Messiah, the Savior of the world, is going to come. Timing. It's timing. So the question is whether is there a dual fulfillment? So we know that he came the first time. And the 70 weeks goes like this. 70 weeks are decreed for your people and your holy city, Jerusalem, to finish the transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up both vision and the prophet, and to anoint the most holy place. The question is, if these 7 things, I think it's 7 of them, have they actually come to fruition? I don't think so. Has the anointing of the most holy place occurred? It hasn't. We've only partially gotten there. Some people think we've gone through 69 of these weeks, and there's been a pause until we reach the 70th week of Daniel, which is thought to be down here in verse 27. So there was actually an investigator back in the 1890s in Britain who put together a book. His name was Sir Robert Anderson. The book is called The Coming Prince. And in this book, he decoded the first 69 weeks from verse 25 to 26. And he uses the Bible, along with mathematics, to determine, based upon the commandment to restore Jerusalem that was given by Artaxerxes on March 14, 445 BC, that 173,880 days later, the triumphal entry on April 6, 32 AD, he does the math, And he says that's the day that Jesus rode in to Jerusalem on that donkey. And the reason that he said, would that you, even you, had known this day, the day of your visitation. See, they should have known, and they didn't know because they weren't studying their prophecy. The same problem they had years ago, we have today. The religious leaders do not study their prophecy, and they are not watching. Therefore, they'll be caught off guard when events begin. Okay, so you can go to any YouTube channel, type in the 69 weeks or the 70 weeks of Daniel's prophecy, and you can see some videos on this, how it justifies this and does the math. But this is an incredible thing that's given to us in prophecy to tell us the coming of the Lord. So that was the first fulfillment. So let me jump here. I go over this whole Luke 19 thing here. So let's jump to the future fulfillment. Is it even possible? Could this exist? Now you notice that when the words are given to us in the Hebrew, it says 70 weeks or 77s. So this first fulfillment was 70 weeks of years, which was about, you can do the math, it was about 483 years roughly. So it was 70 weeks of years. But could the present or the future fulfillment be 70 weeks of days? Which is pretty interesting. So we know that on December 6th, President Donald J. Trump made a Jerusalem Proclamation stating that the position of the United States of America will now consider Jerusalem to be the capital of the nation of Israel, and that subsequently the USA will return to Jerusalem and build its embassy there. Return to Jerusalem and build its embassy. Know and therefore understand that from the going out of the word to restore or return and build Jerusalem to the coming of the anointed one, the Messiah, a prince, there will be 7 weeks. So if you've been on my channel long enough, you know that the USA is Ephraim and is the lead tribe of the northern kingdom of Israel, which is called Israel in the Old Testament. This group, this northern kingdom, Israel, became the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And that's why Jesus says that he returned. He says, I returned only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So when the USA returns to Jerusalem with its embassy, they will reverse a split that occurred. Remember, the two houses of Israel split. The house of Israel split around 930 BC when Solomon's son Rehoboam became the king. And from 930 on, there were two houses, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And here we are. The northern kingdom is going to return and build its embassy. To me, it sounds a lot like this. Know therefore, understand that from the going out of the word to restore and return, to build the embassy in Jerusalem, to the coming of the anointed one, the Messiah, the prince, shall be 7 weeks. So could it be this simple? If we take December 6th and add 49 days to it, we get January 24th, 2018. You can see the time and date calculator right here. So this is pure speculation. I don't claim to know the day of the hour, but this is an interesting thing. So Petra put up a video where she came to this same date, January 24th, 2018, using a different method. I'll just jump to her video for a second, and you can I'll have a link to it. But she talks about a document. She talks about a document she put together where she looks, and believe it or not, through her analysis of looking at Aaron's dreams and some of the stuff that Aaron had in her dream, she came to the conclusion that on the 24th day of the first month, but she was using the lunar calendar, she determined that that seemed to be the viable day that another portion of prophecy would come true, which we're going to jump into right now. So I would advise you to go listen to Petra's video and see the justification she has there. But jumping back to my study here, so the question is, this is what got us on this notion. So what's so important about the 24th day of the first month? of January. See, our months count, January is the first month. So when you look at Daniel 10, believe it or not, it's the chapter right after Daniel 9. This is an extremely interesting encounter that Daniel has with a man clothed in linen, with his face like the appearance of lightning, and the sound of his words were like the sound of a multitude. So let me jump up here. So in those days, Daniel was mourning for 3 weeks. And he says, and on the 24th day of the first month, the 24th day of the first month, December 6th plus 7 weeks, January 24th, the first 24th day of the first month. Hey, man, I don't know. Just go follow with me, guys. He was standing on the bank of the great river. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man clothed in linen with a belt of fine gold. His body was like a beryl, that's a bronze, and his face was like the appearance of lightning. His eyes were flaming torches, and his legs were like a gleam of burnished bronze, and the sound of his words were like a multitude. And I, Daniel, saw this vision. He had 2 men with him. 2 men. And these guys were trembling, and they took off and fled. So he was left alone. Then he said, then I heard the sound of his words. And as I heard the sounds of his words, I fell on my face in a deep sleep, with my face to the ground. Now, where have we heard another scene where there was somebody who was shining like the sun, and he fell asleep, and the people there fell asleep? Where have we heard that before? Does that ring a bell with anybody? Let's jump to Luke 9 and Matthew 17. Luke 9. Sorry, it's right over here. The Transfiguration. Look what it says. Now, about 8 days afterwards, he took Peter, James, and John up to the mountain, and as he was praying, the appearance of his face altered, and the clothes became dazzling white. And behold, 2 men were talking to him, Moses and Elijah. Now, Peter and those who were with him were in a heavy sleep. They were sleeping. Right? Now, let's just jump over to the Matthew one. They were sleeping. Their faces were terrified. This is the same. This is the Matthew version. It says, but Jesus came and touched them, and they rose without them, and they had no fear. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw there was no one but Jesus was there. So if you look at that verse 7, and jump back to what it says here in Daniel 10, it says the same thing. And behold, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. And he stood up upright. It's the same thing. This is the same type of transfiguration event that was in the New Testament that Daniel's having, 500 BC, 500 years before Peter, James, and John did. And so this man who was standing there, dazzling white, came to him and says, I want to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision is for days of yet to come, the end times. So the question is, who is this man who visited Daniel? And on what date did he visit him? Well, it's safe to say that it was the pre-incarnate Jesus who visited him. This is Jesus visiting Daniel in the Old Testament. It's the same scene that's the transfiguration that occurred in the New Testament, except it's with Daniel. And we learn from the text that it's the 24th day of the first month. So I guess the question I have is this. Could Daniel 10 point to the first call of the 144,000 for transformation? Could this first call for training and orientation of 144,000 be on January 24th, 2018? I don't know. I'm just offering up as a possibility. Take it to the Lord in prayer. No one knows the day or the hour, but we must watch for the Lord and be ready. Okay, so that's basically the gist of this, how that came out to be this coincidence of the 7 weeks plus this proclamation date that Trump had. Now we know if you didn't see the proclamation date, this is what happened on December 6th, 2017.
White House to hear from President Trump on recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital.
When I came into office, I promised to look at the world's...
Okay, so on this day, he made that proclamation. I just wanted to share that to you if you missed that part of it. Okay, so there's more. But yet there's more. Okay? I'm going to show you something. I'm going to jump to the chase and show you guys something that's pretty interesting. If you've ever watched God's Healer 7 videos, she has something called a prophecy timeline. If you know the prophecy timeline, because you want, let's see, let her talk about it.
So once again, I'm announcing the coming of the glorious kingdom and His Majesty. Started that September 24th, 2015. That was the same time darkness began. I continue on with that prophecy time frame until April 6th, 2019. What is it?
April 6th, 2019. Interesting date. So if you look at the 70 weeks prophecy, it goes on to say, then for 62 weeks after the 7, that would be Jerusalem, shall be built again with squares and moat, but in a troubled time. And then after the 62 weeks, the anointed Messiah shall be cut off and have nothing. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and it shall come with a flood. And there shall be war, desolation to decree. Then he, maybe the anointed one, shall make a strong covenant with many for 1 week. And for half of the week, 3.5, he shall put an end, or cease to be, to set the sacrifice and the offering. So there's another 62 weeks. So let's jump down and look at the literal 62 weeks of days. I just went and read it up here. So the question is, what happened when we move to the remaining 70 weeks, or the remaining 62 weeks that's spoken of in Daniel 9? Let's do the math. Let's take January 24th plus 62 weeks. We get to April 3rd, 2019. This completes the original 7 weeks plus the 62 weeks to take us to 69 weeks. Now let's add that half a week of that last 70th week. That would be 3 days. And it lands on what? God's Healer 7, end of her prophecy time frame, which is right here. Take the January 24th, you add the 62 and 3.5 days, it lands on April 6th. What does that mean? I don't know. I don't have a clue what that means. Like, I don't have a clue what it means when she talks about this. Let's hear it again.
About the men and hiding, gotta get baptized. Once again, I'm announcing the coming of the glorious kingdom and His Majesty. Started that September 24th, 2015. That was the same time darkness began. I continue on with that prophecy time frame until April 6th, 2019.
Okay, so I just wanted to play that again to show you something about this April 6th, 2019 date. She calls it her prophecy time frame. If you go from September 24th, 2015 out to April 6th, 2019, that's 1,290 days, and that is in Daniel. I'm not going to go look for it. You guys have seen it before. So, look, I don't know what this means. I don't know whether it's the end of something, it's a rapture date. I don't know. But it just can't be a coincidence to have her obscure date of April 6, 2019 actually follow the math of the Donald Trump Jerusalem Proclamation that we see in the 70 weeks of Daniel. I'm just looking for it here. The 70 weeks of Daniel. So, hey, with that, guys, go watch Petra's video. Take this to the Lord. If something comes across your mind about what this means, please put it up in comments. All right, guys, with that, have a good evening, and God bless you.